Hey everybody, it's your boy, and today's video is obviously a very important one about the assassination of Darya Dugina, the daughter of Alexander Dugin, the founder of Duginism, also known as the fourth political theory. But first off, what is Duginism? To be very reductionist, it's essentially national-bolshivism with an imperialist edge to it. So it's basically Russian imperialism, and the goal is to found a Eurasian empire. If you want more in-depth knowledge about Duginism, you can either read his books or go to a video that I will link in the description down below by Freedom Alternative about what Duginism is. That is the best video on YouTube that you can possibly watch about it, and it's quite long, but I think you'll find it very informative. Suffice it to say, that is Duginism in a very reductionist way. So basically, they were travelling back, the two of them, from some Tradcon festival or whatever it's called in Russia. They were taking two separate vehicles, and Darya just so happened to take the wrong one, which had a car bomb in it. It exploded, killing her instantly. There are of course loads of theories and speculations about this assassination. Was she the intended target, or was Dugin the intended target? Who did it? The general consensus is that Dugin himself was the intended target, and apparently, according to people in his circle, they had swapped cars or something, or decided to just take different ones. So Dugin should have been in the car that Darya was in, but in the end, obviously, events took place and she was the one who ended up dying and not him. Essentially, the assassination attempt on his life failed because of blind luck on his part and rather bad luck on hers. But then again, she could well have been the target as a way of possibly a warning to him from certain people within maybe Russian elite circles, or maybe the Ukrainians decided to go after her because of what she's been saying online and what he's been saying for years. Who knows? But what about who did it? We don't know yet. The two main suspects are either Ukrainian special forces, secret services, or the Russian special forces or secret service. Of course, it could well be CIA, Mossad, or whoever, we don't know. But the two main suspects are the FSB and Ukraine. If it's Ukraine, well, assassination is a perfectly viable strategy in warfare. It's been done all throughout human history, especially in World War II. There were several attempts from the Allies and the Axis to kill each other's leaders and generals, some successful, some not. If Ukraine were to have done it, then really they're justified in doing so, because Dugin is somebody who is one of the ideological brains behind this invasion. He may not have been a general planning strategy and stuff, but he is the man who has been laying the groundwork for this whole Eurasian experiment, this conquest. And Putin has his own goals that kind of fall in line with that. He may not be a Eurasianist, a Duginist, but pragmatically he allies with him because they have the same goal of making Russia powerful and conquering their Eastern European neighbours and being a big empire. And so to kill off one of the major ideological figureheads for Russia would be a massive morale blow for them, and also a brain drain, because Russia doesn't have many brains at the moment. He is one of their leaders, whether we like it or not, and this is a war that's not just fought on the battlefield, but in propaganda, online, and with ideas. And as you'll see soon, Dugin has said stuff that kind of puts him in the firing line, so to speak. But what if it was the FSB? Well, that would mean that Putin is getting either paranoid, or Dugin is getting too powerful, and Putin has decided to, well, get rid of him. It could well be that Putin has gotten paranoid in his old age, and with the rumours of him having something wrong with his brain, whether it be cancer or something else, that could be affecting him, and because he's a late-stage dictator, he's probably grown to be quite paranoid and schizo, and so therefore has irrationally decided that Dugin has to go because he's a threat for whatever reason. He may be thinking he's gotten too powerful or too influential. If he has gotten too powerful and influential for Putin and has designs for power, whether or not that would be to take over or to put someone in Putin's place, that could well be why the FSB and Putin want to get rid of him. But ultimately ended up getting his daughter. Now, Kamil Galiev, who I recommend if you have time to read very long Twitter threads about Russia, Eastern Europe, interesting topics, communism, stuff like that, he makes a very interesting point, which kind of makes the FSB theory even more plausible in a weird, esoteric way. His belief is that it is almost certainly the FSB that engaged in this assassination attempt, only it's a false flag operation, most likely because it would be a pretext for strikes that had already been pre-planned against the Ukrainians, scheduled for their Independence Day. He says that Darya was actually chosen to be the main target for the assassination, not Dugin himself, to be used as a sacrificial lamb. Contrary to what a lot of other people say about Dugin having this massive influence within the Russian state apparatus and having Putin's ear, he believes that Dugin and Darya were actually nobodies within the system of power, but that the West did believe that they were somebody. And he quotes Igor Shigolev, presidential plenipotentiary, who says, to justify this decision, they made up a myth. Philosopher Dugin has influence in government and those in power circles. He can and must be killed for that. They made up a myth and got scared of it. The reason why she was chosen as a sacrificial lamb for the attacks that were planned, because she's a young woman, and because she's a young woman, that would create a lot of sympathy and a lot of support in certain circles in Europe and the world. Let's just say that Dugin, being an old man, is going to garner less sympathy than his daughter, who is a young woman. And in his opinion, she was chosen because she would excite a lot of the dissident right-wingers in Europe who are already kind of pro-Putin, and that would create a lot of anti-Ukrainian feeling in the West, and also give them some kind of justification for the strikes that they were planning. And he even says that Dugin himself is okay with this. He has a sort of strange fixation on sacrifice. We need only the victory, he said apparently. My daughter put her maiden's life on its altar. He even says that Dugin's view on sacrifice is that for the sake of the ritual, the sacrificer and the sacrificed must be one. I could go into the whole Twitter thread, but I think you get the point, guys. If this is true, then Dugin himself was never the intended target. It was only, and if Dugina was the intended target, then she was chosen only because she's a young woman and she was expendable enough for this job, despite being the daughter of, well, one of the most influential Russian philosophers of the 21st and 20th centuries. In many ways, it's kind of funny because Darya spent this whole war trying to boost her profile. She's the daughter of Dugin and things like that in an effort to make herself a popular figure, a celebrity. She thought she could gain more power and influence as a result of this, and in the end, her higher-ups decided that she was the one who had to be sacrificed. We don't really know for sure, unfortunately, and events are developing as we speak. Now, the reaction to all of this has been, well, mixed, shall we say. On the anti-Duginist side, which is made up of Ukrainians, of right-wing Westerners who are against Dugin and what he's been trying to do in the West, subverting their movements and stuff like that, and also leftists who weren't subverted by him either. Some of them obviously are shocked and surprised that this happened, and also some of them, especially the Ukrainians and those who are Eastern European, they are not sympathetic whatsoever. And of course on the pro-Duginist side, made up of Marxists to the dissident right, they're saddened, and this has to me been typified by AA's reaction, where he said that the Tory boys are so callous and horrible, paraphrasing, how could they, how dare they attack Dugin, how dare they have no sympathy and make fun of him and stuff like that. Well, AA, I don't know if you know this, but Dugin doesn't do himself any favours, and when he says stuff like this...
By the way, here's Dugin in a Google Hangout.
Я думаю, убивать и убивать больше разговоров никаких не должно быть. Как профессор, я так считаю.
But just in case he might be misrepresented, Dugin made sure to clarify his outburst on Facebook. Here's Dugin on Facebook saying, quote, Ukraine needs to be cleansed of idiots. A genocide of cretins suggests itself. Cretins who are virulent, closed for the voice of Logos, deadly, and in addition to this, extremely stupid. I don't believe that these are Ukrainians. Ukrainians are a fine Slavic people, but these are some race of bastards that emerged from the sewage.
Advocating the genocide of an entire group of people, yeah, I think you can see why people have no sympathy for him. And the thing is, his daughter was no better. She has also been on camera saying very similar stuff to him in regards to Ukraine.
А кажется ли тебе, что они сейчас создают вот этой войной, мы косвенно помогаем им создавать свою идентичность?
Ну, она будет исключительно локализована на западе Украины. Она, в принципе, и так была сформирована всегда антироссийская сущность. Там, собственно, то, что было в Киеве запущено 8 лет назад, это на самом деле тот же проект антироссии. Это форма экстремальной идентичности, построенная на отрицании чего-то и возвышении какого-то одного из элементов. То есть, в принципе, Западная Украина к интегрированию не подлежит. Вот что касается уже вопроса Центральной Украины и Восточной Украины, то здесь все-таки я по Донецку вижу и по Луганску, что там, и, собственно, по окружающему.
So we're not dealing here with very nice people. In fact, dare I say, the world is a better place without people like the Dugins. So I'm sorry that some of us are not quite sympathetic to Dugin and don't shed a tear or have an ounce of empathy or sympathy for this guy when he himself can't even do that for others and is quite willing to kill millions to get what he wants. So what happens next? Well, we don't know, but I reckon I could try and give some theories as to what could happen. Dugin could do two things. He could either retreat from public life out of grief and shame, or he could get galvanised, he could become more radical and thirst for revenge. If it's the former, he will do so because he couldn't believe that the ideas that he spouts, the things that he proposes, have real life consequences, not just for other people that he wants to conquer, but for himself. It's the classic revolutionary intellectual situation we have here. The type of intellectual, like say a communist, which he is, who advocates for the murder and destruction of the bourgeoisie, and then once the revolution happens, is put against the wall because he's just not commie enough, he's too bourgeois. That is exactly what is happening to Dugin right now. I bet he never thought that this could ever happen to him. I bet he thought he was safe in his ivory tower, and well, this has been the reality check for him, and this could break him. Or it might do the opposite and galvanise him and make him want to do even more, become more radical, which could be bad for us potentially, or maybe not. We do not know. Russia will probably use this in the ongoing propaganda battle with Ukraine. Some people think that this could be a dub for them because the assassination failed, because, you know, she's been martyred now potentially, and if he was the one who died, he could have been martyred. But then again, it may not be. It might just be that because they've had such a terrible form in the propaganda battle, they'll mess it up. But we don't really know. Either way, it's not going to have an effect on the war, at least materially and on the battlefield, but in terms of the battlefield of ideas and the cultural aspect of it, this will have an impact. But what it is, we don't know. But anyway, what else can I say? That's one less socialist in the world, and Dugin, well, you reap what you sow. Until next time, I'll see you all later.